Hello and welcome to the FDT-TV podcast. I've got it right this time and we are recorded. First time as well, not like the blunder from a couple of weeks ago where we ended up speaking for about 40 minutes and then Ian did an amazing recap of the last half hour that had me in stitches whilst I was watching it back. It was absolutely brilliant. But welcome if you are new to the channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. My name is Mike and I'm joined by the very lovely Ian Varker. We are here to talk about things football, mainly the Premier League. We are big, as you can see, West Ham and Arsenal fans, brought together from a mutual love of the game, and we are here to talk things crap. We do have a plan put in place, but sometimes we get a little bit sidetracked. But stick with us. It will be entertaining. But yes, and if you haven't already, please hit that like and subscribe button. Help us increase our followers because it would be, or help grow the channel. And your support is very much appreciated. And for those returning, welcome back again. Ian, how was your weekend?
To be expected, I would say. In terms of football, other than that, it was quite good. But yeah, no, I see the loss coming. It's just a collective sigh from all the West Ham fans across the world there. I think that for months we've been saying it's time to go, but no one listens.
No, and to be honest, I mean, it's something that we're going to come on to a little bit later. Obviously, we'll recap the games as well. There's a few topics that I want to talk about, as I mentioned, that being one of them. Myself, I've got to be honest, it was a bit of a strange weekend for me because I think it's the first time I haven't actually watched the game live in... I don't even know how long, if I'm being completely honest. I was a little bit gutted, but glad to see us coming away winners from that particular game. But again, from as good as the day was, it was obviously tarred a little bit by some absolute idiot. But we'll come on to that in a minute. So for the first thing I wanted to talk about in terms of this weekend's footballing, for those of you who have probably seen the mass ongoing discussions that are going on today, it was surrounding the Manchester derby. Manchester City went 1-0 up, and Bruno Fernandes equalised a little bit later on into the game. Some would say a bit controversially, but ultimately ended up going away as winners from that particular game, which was great as an Arsenal fan because obviously it allowed us the opportunity to increase the gap at the top again. But I've got to be honest, I felt a little bit sorry for Manchester City, and it's not something I want to say too sensitively, because obviously at the end of the day we're in a title race and they're one of the clear contenders for that. But Marcus Rashford threw on goal, didn't actually touch the ball, and Bruno Fernandes slotted it. I've got to say it was a beautiful finish in order to equalise. Linesman flagged it up. The referee went over to speak to the linesman and ultimately decided that the goal was going to stand. What are your thoughts on this? Because I want to ask you what your thoughts are, and I also want to just mention about the ref watch, what their thoughts were.
So I will say, fantastic game, and I think Ten Hag got the better of the tactics, if I'm totally honest, and United could have had 4 if Rashford was really sort of clinical in front of goal, but he wasn't. So yeah, the first goal with Bruno Fernandes, I agree it was offside. I think the linesman got it right there. The reason for that is when it was played forward, it was clearly played with intent to Rashford, who took a swing at it, missed it, which allowed it to go on to Fernandes, and that's, from what I understand, why the VAR said it wasn't offside, because he didn't touch it. But I understand the offside rule is if it's intended to be played to or by a player that's in an offside position, then it's offside. So I think they were harshly ruled out by that, which is sort of controversial to what Howard Webber said. But the second one I thought was offside as well. But they didn't look at that one. But what just go back to Howard Webb. He's taken over the PGMOL.
Mm-hmm.
He's now the top dog. And what he said is, we don't want VAR to be intervening. We want it to be looking at clear and obvious errors and to take a step back and give the power back to those on the pitch.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, that wasn't the case with that decision because the linesman got it right. But what I will say is what I've said for a long time in conspiracy theories of, that's because it's fixed. And actually, what makes for a better story? United to beat this invincible guy in Erling Haaland, who's leading the line for Manchester City and putting himself back in the title race. Writes headlines.
Yes, yeah. I'm starting to understand now. Excuse me, sorry, I had a very itchy foot. I'm starting to understand what you're saying now, because there's been a few decisions this year, I would say this year specifically, where I think you're going to get your controversies. You're going to get people that don't agree with the interventions and stuff of VAR and all this sort of stuff. But when they were controversies, I think in previous seasons, I'd say on the most part, because you're still going to get a difference of opinion, but on the most part, they were consistent controversies. And the explanations they were coming out with, I think, were a lot better. Now, for this season, I think there's been a lack of consistency for these decisions, which comes into question it as to why we've got VAR in the first place. Now, who decides whether a decision is obviously you've got your match officials, so you've got your linesman and your referee. If you have a difference of opinion in there, obviously you then come up with a stalemate decision. So effectively, and there is a reason why I'm going into this. So effectively, you've got one vote each, and the referee has the ability to go, okay, well, I appreciate what you're saying, but this is the reason as to why I'm going with this. It's my decision. I'm going for it. Yep. However, when I was listening to Ref Watch, as I said, with Dermot Gallagher, he come up with something which I've been saying all along, is that these decisions are subjective. Now, you have a set of guidelines or a set of rules, but under those rules, you have a set of guidelines. For what you just mentioned about the rule is if you're playing to a player that's in an offside position, it's offside. Caveated by the fact, do they touch the ball? Are they impeding? Etc. etc. So there's a set of guidelines. So what Dermot Gallagher said is that the safer option would have been to flag it offside and for the goal not to stand. But he then used this age-old bullshit that we've seen on Ref Watch for weeks and weeks and weeks, which is, I can understand why he has given it. Yeah. Now, again, what I do like about this is that they do have ex-players and pundits and stuff which are able to give their opinion on these matters as well. And they obviously can state their cases for why the referees are wrong and all this sort of stuff. But I think when you're starting to get that much comeback from people about these decisions or whatever, how can you ignore what they're saying? So for any other team, I think outside of Liverpool, Manchester United, possibly Manchester City on a good day, those decisions are going to go against whoever else is doing that. That would have gone to VAR. They would have checked it and said, no, there was intent to play the ball but not touch the ball. Therefore, the goal shouldn't have stood. And from what I've been reading from other people, as in ex-professionals, and what I've been listening to from ex-professionals and stuff, I'd say 90%, 95% of the people are saying that's an offside. There shouldn't be any kind of extenuating circumstances behind that. If they're offside, they're offside.
Yeah. It's a black and white rule for me. which is why they're going to such minute detail for, is this player offside with the lines?
Yeah.
If they hadn't been doing that and being so, I say articulate with it, but so pernickety about it, then how? Unless it is fixed to write headlines.
Yeah. Again, hashtag conspiracy. The FA is corrupt. Yeah, I'm starting to believe your hypothesis, and it would be interesting to see if there was some like deep dive investigation done on that. I would love to see some sort of documentary where they go into all these decisions, so they open up their microphones to, like Amazon Prime, they're all or nothing. They should do all or nothing refereeing.
Well, I see that Sky did one on about transfer deadlines,
Yes.
didn't they? I haven't watched it yet.
I haven't watched it yet. I do really want to watch it.
But the thing being, the VAR room has 2 or 3 people in who are all mic'd up, so there must be a way to hear that conversation. And as I've said it time and time again, the only reason they wouldn't want people to hear that investigation if there's something that's being said that shouldn't be being said. Because if you give a controversial decision like that, and it's gone to VAR, and they say, "Yeah, this is," and you can understand the process of why that decision has been made, then there is an understanding with it. And okay, you might not like all the decisions that you get or go against you, but if you can understand why that decision has been made, I think the majority of fans would have a much more reasonable response to it. So yeah, I don't want to say Liverpool got a number of VAR decisions as well this week, but they did.
Yeah.
So just to move on to it a little bit quickly, Solly March went through on goal, taken out by the goalkeeper. They pulled it back, went, "Oh no, it was offside." Well, hang on, no one flagged for that. So yes, it was offside, but it's also a foul. McAllister got absolutely chopped down by Joel Matip, who they went on to score from that run of play, but it was off the ball because he'd already passed it. Nothing. If they hadn't if Brighton had lost the ball, they would have had to have looked at it for a dangerous challenge. And that's possibly a red. So why not look at it still? Because it still happened. All right, you scored a goal, but there was still a foul there. It was at least a yellow card. And it's just like, where's the consistency in that? They still got smashed, which is great. But actually, on a different day, the goalkeeper staying on, Matip staying on, that changes the game.
Yeah, and I the level or the consistency of the referee's approach is something obviously I think we can question very clearly, we can question very clearly, because there are times where you've seen decisions that are given as a foul by the referee. I think I briefly touched on it last week, where was it Gabriel was rugby tackled in the penalty box or something, and it wasn't given. Yeah, Odegaard a couple of minutes later gets a booking outside of the box for a pull on. I can't remember who it was, but and gets a booking for that. And there was something that happened yesterday in the Arsenal match. There was a defender a player called Romero, I think it is.
Sergio Romero, yeah.
So he got booked fairly on in the game. He then made about 4 or 5 different yellow cardable offences, and you could even hear the commentators saying, he's walking a tightrope, blah 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 blah, and he could have been off. Yeah. So, and I think if any one of those challenges were his first challenge, it would have been a booking. So why not give that a card then? But anyway, moving very swiftly on, because we'll only end up speaking about referees and VAR for the next hour, and I think we've done that subject to death. And to be honest, we're going to do it to death yet again. So yeah, we'll move swiftly on. So obviously, just very quickly, obviously you can see I'm an Arsenal fan. Went 8 points clear at the top of the league with a 2-0 win over Spurs. I got to say, I was nervous going into that game, but I was super happy with the result. Like I said, I didn't watch it live because I was out on a prior engagement. But when I did catch up on it, there was obviously I was aware of the result, and it was good, a good watch. And I think one of the reasons why I was nervous about that game is because we haven't won at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium or the equivalent against Tottenham since 2014. So it was great to come away with the 2 points. A big up yours to our North London rivals, and I'm very happy that we've managed to secure that 8 point position. So we are kind of fairly comfortable. The main reason I wanted to bring this up is because of obviously right at the very end we had a fan that decided that Aaron Ramsdale had gone a bit too far. Went up to collect his personal belongings at the end of the game, and he decided to kick Aaron Ramsdale in the back. Now, from listening to obviously what Aaron Ramsdale was saying, is that he was getting some stick from the Tottenham fans. He was trying to give it a little bit back. Scenes turned a little bit ugly with Richarlison right at the very end as well. He obviously took a disliking to some of Ramsdale's antics and kissing the badge, and I suppose goading the Tottenham fans. But obviously we've seen Ramsdale. He's a very likeable person. Doesn't deserve to be kicked at the end of the game. And obviously the FA have come out and said they're launching an investigation into this person, and they are going, and Tottenham have already come out and said it's a disgrace, that we will find that person and they will receive a lifetime ban from Tottenham.
But surely they should be done for GBH.
I suppose it's the level of the injury. So
I think it sets a very dangerous precedent if they don't throw the book at them.
Yeah, I completely agree, but I think the letter of the law is by the amount of damage that you do to a person. So I think where you have the 3 tiers, so you have assault, ABH and GBH is the categories for the...
So it'll fit into one of them.
Yes,
but,
yeah. Well, I do agree that they should have the book thrown at them, because I know they were starting to come down hard on people's online behaviour, online social media behaviour. And I think that this, where a player has been attacked, and I think we saw at the end of last season as well, there was one of the guys who confronted, I think it was Patrick Vieira. I think he was imprisoned for 30 days or something stupid like that. So for one moment of madness, because let's be honest, there's cameras everywhere. They're going to see where you've come in, where you're going out, and they're going to find you. I know you think you're protected because you had a little scarf over your mouth or whatever, but there's going to be people that have caught the moment on camera, and they're going to be able to rat you out, or they should fucking rat you out because you're a scumbag.
It doesn't beg the question as to there clearly wasn't enough stewarding or proper stewarding for that.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it probably would have sufficed for a normal game day. But being a heated rivalry that it is, you'd expect there to be a bit more boisterous people a bit more worked up. Surely that should have been taken into account as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. But my question to you, just regarding that subject, obviously he's going to get banned from attending Tottenham again. Obviously, if it's season ticket holder or whatever, that I'm assuming that's going to be null and void now. You mentioned just a second ago about going for the highest level of punishment. Are you thinking
Chop his leg.
Yeah, cut his hands off. Are you thinking fines and prison sentence, or for that sort of circumstance, do you think a prison sentence would be enough, or a fine would be enough? What would your precedent be?
I think you have to take it. And people go, "Well, he was wound up." well, let's say I'm having a bad day, someone's wound me up, and I just try and kick some geezer in the back in the middle of the street, like, or go into a butcher's and go, "You've given me one less bacon ration than I wanted," and like try and kick you. Just because it's a football player doesn't mean that's not his job. You've gone into his place of work and tried to give him a kick in. I don't see one where that's acceptable in anywhere normal life, and two why it should be acceptable there. So it should be a case that he should be banned for football stadiums for the rest of his life. And in fairness, he's the sort of person I've got some very wild opinions about things, but you want to clearly live outside of what are, say, social norms. What everyone would have common sense to say, no, it's not acceptable to go and kick in whoever you like. Then live outside the system. Go and put them in the desert and where there is nobody. Do you know what I mean? Like, you want to live like that, then go and live somewhere else where there isn't anybody else about. I don't understand. And maybe this is a me thing. I love watching football, but you have to be gracious with it. And I don't know if that's from being a West Ham fan. I know there's a lot of people who aren't as West Ham fans, but there are times where you have to go, we weren't the better team. We lost. So what we need to do is, like, let's focus on the next one. Look at the positives for what can we go from here. Not, I'm unhappy with that. I've had a beer. I'm going to kick you because I don't like you. I don't understand that mentality.
No. And I completely agree with you 100%. For me, whether he actually made any contact with him or not, I don't know. I think the only person that would be able to tell you realistically, well, the only two people would be Ramsdale and the guy that actually did the kicking. But
what I would say, it's a bit like the offside rule. If there's intent,
yes, yeah. I get what you're saying, and that's kind of where I'm going. Is that for a moment of madness, because this isn't the first time it's happened. I'm not saying specifically that against Tottenham Hotspur, there are people that have run onto pitches and endangered the players on the pitch by any means. So either trying to rugby tackle. I think there was one at West Ham a couple of years ago. Was it Mark Noble grabbed the player or something and threw him to the floor? Or
he was from Basildon,
right? Well, but you know what I mean. So there have been occasions where we've seen that, and I think it was only in certainly my early lifetime where we had cages in front of the fans to avoid people running onto the pitch. But obviously, with the Hillsborough disaster, it was decided that it was unsafe. But there needs to be something like that. Or no, there shouldn't be, because that sort of behaviour shouldn't come into a football stadium anyway. But for me, because it is a moment of insanity for that particular person, I'd say that he needs to be punished in the harshest way.
So I've just looked it up. You all remember Eric Cantona kicking that Crystal Palace fan? 2-week jail sentence. Although he appealed it and it went to 150 hours community service, he was banned from playing for ages, and the club slapped him with a humongous fine.
Mm-hmm.
That geezer's not going to get a fine from his work if he even works. All right, 2 weeks in jail, maybe that'll make him think. Maybe it won't. Maybe you need to look at his previous indiscretions as well and say, is this a common behaviour for this person, or is it a moment of madness? Even so, it's not acceptable. So we need to work on
clamping down on it.
Well, not just clamping down on it, but that rehabilitation of, you need to change your mentality, because that's not acceptable. And actually, if going to the football makes you like that, you're not allowed to go to the football anymore.
Mm-hmm. But
having a beer, you're not allowed to have a beer. Do you know what I mean?
And I think with this sort of punishment, and I'm not just saying it's because it is a Tottenham fan, I'll be saying it if it was any fan of any club, even our supporters, that there should be, and I appreciate that there's going to be a lot of cost implications and all this sort of stuff, but I'm sure it will make people start to, or these people start to think that if there is a prison sentence behind it, you are potentially ruining any future job prospects and stuff like that because you've got a criminal record. And if it is a conviction, you're found guilty, then good. You should be punished for these actions that you've taken. So we'll move on from that. But I just think with the technology today, not only people around you are going to be able to film the incident, because no doubt, I've already seen it. There's about 3 or 4 different angles of this kid running down and giving him a swift kick, and then you see him kind of running back up into the stadium. But why even chance it is kind of what I'm trying to get at, because you're going to get found out. You're going to get punishment in one way, shape or form. So anyway, moving on. Just want to quickly touch on West Ham United. I know this is going to be kind of like a bit of a sore subject for you given the weekend's result, but do you want to just quickly talk about the game?
As I said, Wolves score early. We don't. We score late. I think we held out a lot longer than that I was anticipated. But again, simple football played through West Ham. Lovely strike to go in, but the goalkeeper was rooted to the spot. And then again, they could have been 2 or 3 ahead. They hit the post a couple of times as well. So it wasn't like it was well, I've nicked it in the last minute. That, for me, we were outplayed there. And it does put them above us, puts us in the bottom 3, level on points with bottom place. And it's one of them that before the World Cup I was saying we need to part ways with Moyes, give someone a little bit of time to bed in their philosophy, how they want to play. They're now looking at it, allegedly. Don't know, because that's just paper talk. I think that's just a case that everyone's going, there's a real problem at West Ham. David Moyes isn't doing that. And he did an interview with a different podcast. I can't remember what it was called the other day. And he said, oh, yeah, well, I'm past it as a manager. I want to be able to move on into, hopefully another club will take me on into for my experience. So paraphrasing slightly there, but I think he knows he's under pressure. And as you said, we're playing Everton the weekend. I think one or both managers will go depending on the result. But why not be proactive with it? I know you want to try and stick with a guy who's got you out of trouble before, but it's been going the wrong way for a long time, and it's not. There's no signs of getting any better. Spent £150 million in the summer, and it's got worse. So is that all the players you brought in are worse than what you had, or is that the guy in charge a little bit clueless?
I get what you're saying, and I think for the signings that you made, I think from what I've seen of these players, they do have some quality about them. But maybe it is the fact that he's lost the dressing room. I know this is something you've been saying for a couple of weeks now. That maybe it is time to move on, and from the different conversations that not only that we've had, but from what I know you've listened to, there seems to be kind of like an overwhelming desire for David Moyes to come out. And I've listened to a few different outlets, and there are people that think that David Moyes, with all his experience, will be enough to kind of get you out. And you'd never really like to see managers sacked, although if you're watching the video, this is the kind of title of this video, because we've got a few different examples of what's happening in the potential sack race. But so it's looking very likely. Obviously, as you just mentioned, you got Everton at the weekend, and they're in a kind of fairly similar position. If West Ham lose this game, do you see that inevitable for David Moyes, that his time will be up? Or
if he doesn't go, if we lose this game, he doesn't go, that means we're then 3 points behind Everton, who are currently behind us. We'll be on a worse goal difference than them. if he doesn't go, I think you're going to go back to the scenes where you did see the pitch invasions and things like that, because there is growing discontent. I'm a big proponent for David Moyes. I didn't think we should have got rid of him the first time, but I think at a certain point you have to say I've done as good a job as I can do. Now it's time to move on. Had he done that at the end of last season, I think he would have gone down as a legend, regardless of our league form towards the end where it was really bad. But the fact that he's carried on and he's just very stubborn. That's the thing. I've played this way for the last 25 years. This is how we're going to play. Yes, it does sort of work until you lose the dressing room, and you don't want players to play to their strengths. You want them to play to how you want to play. He hasn't bought that sort of player. He's bought extravagant, possession-based, creative players, not direct counter-attacking players. But when we're 1-0 down, he won't change his system, and we're allowed 5 substitutes now. He'll use 2 really late on. I mean, what are you doing to try and change the game? Quite clearly, we're being outclassed in different areas. Quite clearly, there are things you could do tactically to try and gain an advantage to get a foot back in the game, and he just doesn't. So it's very hard for me in a sense of when there was discontent amongst fans when we brought him back to go, no, actually, he's the right man for the job. The job's changed. We're now in a different position to where we were. Well, we're not when he took over, but he doesn't know how to play differently, and how he playing, we've been found out it doesn't work. So at that point, you do need to change it.
So we talked very briefly last week about obviously the potential sacking of David Moyes, and I have seen a few names banded about, and obviously we spoke very briefly off air, if you like, about some other names. In an ideal world, who would be your man to come into the club?
Well, there's a name that springs to mind, which I think I'd get lynched if I said, which was Big Sam. But if I'm honest, out the current crop of managers who are available, I would have to say Thomas Tuchel. Now, that isn't necessarily because I think he's the best manager of who's available, but I think the players we've got would fit in the style that he likes to play. We've got some creative players. We've got a big man up front who can hold the ball up, which is what he likes, can shoot from distance. We've got some tricky wingers, and we've got some downright good midfielders. So I would say our best goalkeeper, he's out injured at the minute, but he's Areola. He can't get in the team under Moyes. Defensively, we've had a few injuries, but we've got some decent defenders. There's no reason we should be in the position we're in. That was proved. Spent most of last season, or first half of last season, in the top 4. How's that squad been improved? And now we're in the bottom 3. Yeah, no, I think I would take Thomas Tuchel, if I'm totally honest, if I could have anybody at the moment. I just think even if we do go down, it would be a possession-based relegation, and we might see some decent West Ham way football out of it.
So do you think with the relegation, obviously I know that there are or he would have a contract and all this sort of stuff, but just say Thomas Tuchel come in to replace David Moyes and you did get relegated, obviously we would hope that he would do enough to get you out of that position, and I would say more than likely you will start stringing some results together. We've still got half a season to go. But do you think he would look to jump ship if another Premier League opportunity come up? Or
and I wouldn't blame him for that. The bit that I think is difficult now is how do you attract a high caliber manager to a relegation fight?
Yeah,
without that saying, give us till the end of the season and then we'll see. Because if you'd done it before the World Cup, where we were still sort of mid-table, and you go, actually, the squad that's there, give them a little bit of a pick-up, got a lot of time to turn it round, and we've got 3 or 4 games before we're really struggling. I think there's more of an incentive to come there. Now there's a big gap opening up between us and the top 7. How do you encourage that? I know we're still in the Europa Conference League, so there is that side of things. We could still be in Europa League next year, but that's a pointless endeavour if you're in a championship.
Yep. Okay.
So it's a double-edged sword, I think. Had we struck earlier on in the season, we could have got a higher caliber manager. Doesn't necessarily mean it always works out, but now I think we're limited our options because we're in a relegation fight.
Yep, that's a fair
point.
One
wants to be a manager who got the club with the most season ticket holders in London relegated. It's just they don't want to do that.
No. So obviously we mentioned that you've got Everton on Saturday. I just wanted to touch on Frank Lampard and the position he is in as well. Again, you put a very clever term together for this match on Saturday. Do you just want to tell the viewers what you said?
But El Sacchio?
Yeah, I like that.
A bit like the El Clasico.
Yeah. I think it's nice spin. Obviously, Frank Lampard's in a bit of dire straits with Everton at the moment as well. I know they've been kind of erratic with their performances. They do seem to go up in games and then consequently concede either for the draw or to end up losing. And this weekend was no different. I think they ended up 2-1 losers against Southampton, I think it was. Yeah. But Frank Lampard, we spoke about Steven Gerrard a couple of months ago now, obviously with Unai Emery coming in. Do you see him potentially being sacked as well? He's obviously under massive pressure at the moment.
So there's a lot going on at Everton, isn't there? With the board wanting to sell the club, the fans wanting them out, things like that, which doesn't help. Everton is one of those old-fashioned grounds that everyone's right on top of you and they let you know. If you think you're playing bad football in the first 2 minutes, they'll start booing you. Do you know what I mean? So that makes it much harder. I don't think Everton have been as bad as what results show. If I'm totally honest, you think they've played the last 4 games, sorry, was a 1-1 draw away to Man City, which, okay, you take that. That's good. 4-1 at home to Brighton, who Brighton are blowing teams away this year. They've really stepped it up. 3-1 against Man United in the Cup. And again, Manchester United are on form. And then they've played Southampton, who've just beat Man City and are flying high, full of confidence. And yeah, okay, they lost. But I don't think they're playing as bad as what the results show. I think they go through patches of form and they'll have a few injuries here and a few injuries there. And I think they're one of the teams that the World Cup did no favours for. Going into it, they started to string together a few results. They had the break, and then it's trying to get it going again. They have lost Richarlison, which is a big part of how they played. Didn't replace him. They lost Luca Digne, didn't they? Last season?
Yep.
Again, didn't replace him. So there are problems at the club, quite clearly. But I don't think Lampard's doing that bad, to be fair. Given what he's got and the injuries, I don't think he's doing terribly. Could he be doing better? Of course he could. But Everton fans want their players or want their team to play in a certain style, and he's doing that. But that does mean that you are left a little bit open at the back sometimes. You put a little bit of confidence in them, a bit like Southampton. I think they're flying. They go and win the next few games. I mean, I don't know. They've got us. If they beat us, that's huge. They play you. They always seem to be your bogey team. Then you've got the Liverpool Everton derby after that. So there are 3 games there potentially. They could walk away with 9 points. Unlikely. I would say they would probably beat us, lose to you, beat Liverpool.
See, I'm not so sure because we're playing them away, and as you mentioned, they're a bit of a bogey team for us. And I think I can certainly think of 2 or 3 seasons over recent past where they've been on a shit run of form, and then it comes to play. Like, just for an example, I think it was either last year or the year before where they hadn't scored in X amount of games, or they hadn't won in X amount of games. We were going through a bit of a purple patch, and all of a sudden the wheels come off when we go to play them. There's kind of like a different level of intensity that I see Everton seem to kind of get the wind in their sails and decide they actually want to turn up and fight against us. So that's one of the games I think where we, based on our current form, we're expected to go in and, I suppose, steamroll them in a way. But I can see that being one of these games where we potentially slip up. Obviously, like you said, it's a big game on Saturday for you guys, or for both sets of managers. Yeah, I think it'll be quite an interesting one. And another manager, I know we spoke about a little bit last week about Liverpool, what's happening at Liverpool, but to be more specific, Jurgen Klopp, I think he's under enormous pressure at the moment. I mean, he may be going under the radar slightly because of some of the other teams, i.e. your Frank Lampard, your David Moyes, I suppose Man City in a way. I mean, I know they're still in the Champions League, etc. But when it comes to the form in the Premier League, they're nowhere near what they have done over previous seasons, and they may go on a bit of a run. I mean, we've still got to play Man City in a couple of weeks, so that will be kind of like a telling statement as to what's going on. But like I said, because of the heights that Liverpool have hit over the last few years, to be where they are at the moment and struggling against some of the lower teams, I think Liverpool, or certainly Jurgen Klopp, would be under a massive amount of pressure at the moment to either improve or to go.
I think he's in terms of a fan perspective, yes. But in terms of footballing, I don't think he's got any problems. The reason I say that is the Liverpool's up for sale. They're not going to want to sack him and pay him millions of pounds when they're trying to offload the club.
Yep.
Because that eats out of any profit margin, doesn't it? That potentially there might be, potentially there won't be. I don't know. But I think you are right. The fact that Manchester City are not the animal they were at the beginning of the season or previous seasons, the fact that West Ham are doing so bad and Everton are doing so bad, and Graham Potter allegedly is doing this horrendous job, they're level on points with Liverpool. He hasn't had the whole season. Jurgen Klopp's been there for a number of years, so I think that there's comparables, isn't there? I know they've got a few strikers out injured. Chelsea have got a team of first-team players out. And I think 8 out of 11 of them would walk into most Premier League sides anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I think with that going on, it sort of takes away from Jurgen Klopp doing bad, because he's not as bad as Graham Potter, is he? Oh, wow, Pep's having a bit of a bad week. He lost to Southampton this week. Do you know what I mean? I think you are right. He's flying under the radar, but I don't think they'll ever get rid of him just because they don't want to spend any more money. And I think that it's just a slippery slope down. They finished 9th. They're not going to win the Champions League this year, not on the form they're in. Salah will go. A couple of other players will go. Then what? Then it's a mass exodus because they're an ageing squad. Midfield is ageing. Defence, they've got some ageing players. Then what? You're relying on youngsters who you haven't tried to develop because you've just been buying in talent.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's a slippery slope for Liverpool, I think. And I think they could be in mid-table obscurity much sooner than they realise yet again.
Yeah, to be honest, it's social media. It seems to be very quiet this year. I know there's the usual suspects. Obviously, Arsenal fans are quite rowdy on social media, and to an extent, there's obviously a lot of, I suppose, other clubs that do get quite boisterous. But Liverpool have been absolutely fucking unbearable for the last few years where they've been doing so well. And I know they won a couple of cups and stuff last year, and won the Premier League within the last 3 years, and the Champions League as well. But I think for the heights where they were, I know you've probably just hit the nail on the head there massively with the Asian squad. And I know they've made some recruitment, but they have lost some key players as well. There's no longer that squad depth anymore. So as soon as they start picking up injuries, they are being found out in terms of their squad depth. So kind of like what we were doing over the last few years. Now, personally, I think that Jurgen Klopp's days are numbered, if I'm being completely honest. Despite the offer to sell Liverpool, I don't see that happening in the immediate future. So I think, in fact, no, I'm going to take back everything I just said. I think maybe they will stick with him to the end of the season. But I wouldn't be surprised if he does go beforehand, because I mean they're still in a couple of competitions or whatever. I know they got their replay against Wolves tonight, I think it is, or is it tomorrow? Tomorrow, I think it is. But yeah, there's his days are numbered, I think. But I wouldn't be surprised if he does remain till the end of the season. But
yeah, he signed a new deal last April, and his contract doesn't run out until 2026.
Right.
That's going to be a fair whack of a contract to pay him off, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Unless they do give him, obviously because of his recent success, where he's kind of got like a get out free jail clause just for this season, and then we go again next season once they've made a bit more recruitment into the team. But yeah, it's a bit of a crazy one. But yes, let us know what your thoughts about any of these topics that we've spoken about in the comments below. Like I said, if you've managed to stick it to this far, thank you so much so far. I'm just going to go very quickly onto our predictions. So every week we do have our weekly predictions for the illustrious FIFA Day Trophy Predictions Trophy, which you can see currently sitting over Ian's shoulder at the moment. I have won it for 2 years, and Ian is the current holder, so I'm looking to obviously retain that back, or get that back, into my possession. And it's going well so far. So I'm just going to touch on the predictions from last week. Only the 2 games last week. We had Wolves versus West Ham and Tottenham versus Arsenal. Ian, you had 2-1 as a prediction to Wolves, and I had 2-2. Obviously, you've touched on the game already. It's 1-0 to Wolves. Therefore, 0 points to both of us. So just a recap for everyone, you get 1 point for a correct result and 3 points for a correct score. Going on.
Can I get a point for that one?
Oh, yes, you do. Sorry. Balls. Yes, you do.
I know you want to win the trophy.
Bad maths. Yeah, this is it. You're going to be going through every game now just to make sure I've got like the scores and the predictions right. Okay, well that changes everything. Yes, so you get a point and I don't get a point. Then the Tottenham Arsenal game, you had 2-1 to Tottenham and I had 3-2 to Arsenal. Score was 2-0 as I've already mentioned, so that's a point to me and a point to you. So looking at the season's results, so it's 1 point each for this week, and therefore we have the scores. I did have it open. Where have you gone? Ian, you are now on 34 and I'm on 36, so still a 2 point gap. I thought I'd open it up. I'm very disappointed. How very dare you? So looking at the games this week, we do have, as we've already mentioned, Arsenal versus West Ham versus Everton, and then Arsenal versus Manchester United. So, Ian, your game is on the Saturday. What do you think the score is going to be on this one?
I think we're struggling for goals, yet Everton are still scoring some. So I'm going to go 2-1 to Everton.
Okay.
I think their fans, because we're at home, I think the fans will get on the wrong side of the players and the management, and it'll just be a toxic atmosphere, which then gives the away team opportunity to thrive.
I've gone for the same score but reverse. So I've gone
Okay.
2-1 for West Ham on this one. Again, this could be the game that sees Frank Lampard depart from Everton. In fact, it could be, as we've already mentioned, both managers could potentially go after the result.
Do they both get sacked?
Yeah, but no, I do think this will be the week where West Ham start picking up points again and start making a bit of a charge up the table. I know in terms of the managerial position at West Ham, you're not happy with that, as I'm sure the majority of West Ham fans are, and maybe a change is what you need, but you never know. You also need points, so if you do start winning games, I'm sure you'll take that either way. So the next game that we have to predict is Arsenal versus Manchester United on the Sunday. A game I'm very much looking forward to, hopefully to right the wrongs from earlier on in the season. We were by far the better team within the first game, although the scoreline didn't suggest it. Manchester United were a lot more clinical than what we were, and obviously being as far into the season as we are now, sitting where we are, I think there's a much better team spirit than there was at the start of the season. Not saying it was bad, but we're on a good run of form at the moment. So I'm under no illusions that Manchester United are going to want to come out and reduce that points gap between us to keep them within the title race. But I hope that we pull out one of our outstanding performances, and I'm going to go for 2-1 on this one to Arsenal.
Ooh. See, now I was going to say both teams are on form, so that should be really exciting. And I wanted to go like 3-3. This has got 0-0 written all over it.
Yeah. Kind of like the Newcastle game.
Yeah, I'm going 0-0.
Okay. And again, it's one of these games I will take it. As long as we keep getting points on the board, I'll be happy. Obviously, I would prefer the win, and I prefer it to be 2-1. So, Arsenal, if you're listening, make sure that's the score, because I do want to get that trophy. Again, the same with what I said about the comments about the topics that we've spoken about this evening. Let us know what your thoughts are for the score predictions. If you want to get involved, we are on Twitter. We are also... obviously, we're on Spotify and anywhere that you would like to consume your podcasts. Just look for the Yellow Cup. But other than that, Ian, have you got anything else you want to talk about tonight?
Just one last thing I did want to mention. That I went down a shop the other day and went to buy a Tesco's meal deal. But before I could get to the checkout, Chelsea came in and bought it for twice the price that I was going to pay.
Oh yes, transfers. Yes, let's
very Chelsea just in all the players.
Yeah, let's touch on that very brief. Very briefly. Kind of like Mudrik's Arsenal career. Yes, it was a very good point actually, and I suppose kind of why I've overlooked that in my topics for this week. Yeah, what a bunch of bastards. If I'm being completely honest, is a player I was actually really excited about. Obviously, I mentioned it. I try not to get suckered in with all the hype on social media and all these transfer gurus, i.e. your Fabrizio Romanos and all this sort of stuff. And I think this is just going to be the ammunition I need to just wait now until something's announced via the club or via Sky Sports that we have signed someone, because... everyone's been going on about trust the process when it comes to Arteta, and we are reaping the rewards of that. And I'll tell you who else is fucking reaping the rewards of that. Fucking Chelsea. There's been a couple of targets that we've been for, and all of a sudden they come in with these big money offers, and we don't want to overpay, obviously, given the Ozil Aubameyang situation. Sorry?
Pepe.
Yeah, Pepe situation, and we want to kind of not get our asses spanked anymore. So, I mean, fair play to him. He's gone for the project. It's the same with João Felix, who's another player that's worth their weight in gold for in terms of games that they're going to get.
I've got to admit, I actually thought he was really good. Chelsea just were passing sideways in that game, and he just went in with a definite forwards challenge.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that could be positive. Actually, he looked like he wanted to be attacking. So depends
Well,
on
he'll have to wait
past the
for a few more games now to show us again. But yes, by which time the Magic deal will be signed, sealed, delivered. He will be a Chelsea player, so it could be an interesting force to contend with going forwards. But just on the basis of transfers, obviously we touched on last week about potential player incomings. What is there any updates to West Ham's position?
in the series from Seville turned us down allegedly because he wanted to help Seville. He didn't want to walk away when the club needed him. I think that he doesn't want to be relegated into the Championship.
Yep.
And another geezer from the French league, second top goal scorer, has been rejected. £25 million move, striker. But again, David Moyes is saying, I don't want anyone. So these are not Moyes signings, which does say maybe something else is coming in. But yeah, nothing on the West Ham front. Not yet, and not until Craig Dawson and Mikel Antonio join Wolves.
Yes, yeah, I've seen that. Antonio, I saw some speculation about possibly to Everton was one I was reading about earlier. But again, in terms of an Arsenal perspective, what the main transfer target, as we've just mentioned, off to Chelsea, and this is going to be the ammunition I need now just to kind of stay away from social media when it comes to transfers and wait until we get someone confirmed on Sky Sports or via the club. So. All transfer updates to come from Ian solely going forwards until the end of the transfer market closes. But yeah, anything else you want to talk about?
Me?
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for watching. Again, if you have made it this far, we really do appreciate it for the people that have come on the journey with us. Please hit that like and subscribe button. As we mentioned a couple of times now, it would be greatly appreciated. Share it amongst your pals, even if it's just to have a laugh about some of the crap that we talk about. It would be greatly appreciated. But until then, I've been Mike.
I've been Ian.
I'll see you next week.